I wanted to talk about a period of my physiotherapy life that was perhaps one of the most exhilarating of my whole working time. And this was way back in Dunedin in 1974 when we were fundraising for what was to become known as the Otago Southland Physiotherapy Trust. This was the idea of Barbara Fitzgerald, who herself was a physiotherapist and married to a pathologist in Dunedin. She was very concerned that physiotherapy in the deep south didn't seem to get the number of overseas visiting speakers that the North Island was perhaps enjoying. Visitors would come and present in Auckland or Wellington and sometimes even Christchurch, but Dunedin just always seemed to be left out. And so we had this idea that if we could establish sufficient funds so that the interest would pay for an annual visiting fellow that would come to Dunedin or Invercargill and mainly for the benefit of the physiotherapists there. It wasn't restricted to overseas physiotherapists coming to speak to us. Sometimes there were local people that we wanted to sponsor. And so this met with enthusiasm from the Otago branch members and also in Southland too. So the main committee was formed in Dunedin with the task of fundraising. I was to chair this committee, and I don't even remember all the people who were on it now. Certainly Gay Ross, Shirley Satterthwaite, Barbara Fitzgerald, and we had a number of distinguished members of the community giving us absolutely wonderful support. Sir John Walsh, who had been Dean of the Dental School and quite a character, had had a severe stroke and had had very intensive physiotherapy from Catherine Hedges, whom he absolutely adored and staked all his outcome on physiotherapy and was very, very loud to sing the praises of physiotherapy. Robin Irvine was at that stage, I think, Dean of the Medical School. He later became Vice-Chancellor of the University of Otago. He was right behind us and thought it was a wonderful idea. So too did Alan Aldred, a very prominent orthopaedic surgeon. And then we had the most wonderful lady, Vera Haywood. Vera spent her whole life working for crippled children in Dunedin. She was a member of the Dunedin Otago Hospital Board. She was the sister of the former registrar of the university, Jock Haywood. I think Vera had originally trained as a kindergarten teacher. She never married, but always she did transport of crippled children from their homes down to physiotherapy, back home again, or down to the pool for swimming and back home again. She was also a pillar of Knox Presbyterian Church, and many of the physio students used to go to church there on Sunday nights, and she every Sunday night would invite 3 or 4 physio students to her home up in Opaho for Sunday night dinner before church. She was a wonderful person and adored physiotherapists too. And so we had a wonderful time. It was good. It was a very unifying thing for all of the physios in Dunedin, whether they were polytechnic, hospital board, private practice, non-practicing, and embraced all the rural physiotherapists too. We set about a logo. It was going to be our first foray into really publicising what physiotherapy was and improving our image and trying to persuade the local community to give money to our trust. It certainly enlightened a lot of us into the field of advertising, of marketing, of approaching trust funds, how to prepare these applications for trusts, and we had car rallies and cake stalls and cocktail parties and auctions, all sorts of things, and it was a wonderful 18 months. I've forgotten how much money we raised in that period of time. I seem to recall about $60,000, which in those days we considered enough to start the trust running. Then we had our first big conference with our first visiting fellow for the trust, and that was Dr. Hugh Burry, a former All Black who was very knowledgeable in sports medicine, and we based a whole conference around sports medicine, and it was absolutely minimal cost for the Otago and Southland physiotherapists, but we got a great support, or a lot of registrations from other physiotherapists in the country who were quite happy to pay a much higher conference fee to come to that. And this is the way it has been ever since. There have been a lot of loyal people. Margot Skinner has for very many years been chairman of the board of trustees, and there have been untold physiotherapists or medical specialists coming to New Zealand or from within New Zealand presenting in Dunedin and Invercargill.